Hello, everyone. In this video, we will be looking at the notes and examples from section 3.7 on applications to business. So before looking at the examples on this page, I just have written down here some very useful formulas that we will be using in these examples and this section. So let's go through these formulas first, and then we'll get started. So first, I just have a demand and supply function. So demand and supply are both in terms of the quantity P and price, and Q for quantity. So I'm letting the demand function be D of Q equals some price, and the supply function be S of Q, which is also some price. So I'm just using this function notation because we're going to see these demand and supply functions in our formulas on the right here. For equilibrium point, I'm just going to let that be the point PQ, and that is the point where supply equals demand. So to find it, we would set the supply and demand function equal, and then get that P and Q point. So now on to those functions that we'll be seeing in this section, or rather formulas that we'll be seeing in this section. So first of all, we have a consumer surplus. So consumer surplus is the integral over the demand from 0 to Q minus P times Q. So we should think of this as the total coming in from the amount of demand for Q items minus the price for making those Q items. So this is how much extra or surplus is coming in from the consumer. Then we also have our producer surplus. So the producer surplus looks like P times Q minus the integral of supply from 0 to Q. So we should think of this as the total coming in from producing Q items minus the total price for producing that certain supply of Q items. So that's how much extra we have as a producer. And then just a final bit of vocabulary here is our total gains. So total gains is equal to the sum of consumer surplus plus producer surplus. All right, so now let's go ahead and look at an example. And one thing I will say too is that I think it'll be useful for you to pause the video before continuing so that you make sure you have all of these notes. And I do have some space here for you to write those notes. I wrote them up here just because it was, I had a little bit more room there. All right, so now let's look at the example. So suppose the demand for a product is given by the function that I'll highlight here. P equals D of Q equals negative 0.8Q plus 150. So this is our demand function. And the supply for the same product is given by our supply function 5.2 times Q. For both of the functions, Q is the quantity and P is the price in dollars. So part A says to find the equilibrium point. So recall the equilibrium point is where the demand of an item is equal to the supply of the item. So to find part A, we need to set up that equality and solve for Q. So let's go ahead and do that. So we would write demand as negative 0.8Q plus 150 equals 5.2Q. So now what I'd like you to do is go ahead and pause the video and solve for Q on your own first. All right, and when you're ready, we can just look at it together. So we need to solve for Q. So I'm going to put my Q on both sides. So add this 0.8Q to both sides. So I'm left with 150 equals 5.2Q plus 0.8Q gives me 6Q. Then now what do we do? Divide by 6. We should have Q is equal to 150 divided by 6, which is 25. So now I know the Q point for my equilibrium point, or the Q value for my equilibrium point. So now in order to find P, I need to plug in that Q to either function, S of Q or D of Q. Both of those functions will give me out that P associated to the location when S and D, or supply and demand, are equal. So I'm just going to pick the easier function to compute. So that would be my supply. So I'm going to write S of 25. That's going to be the p-value associated to my equilibrium point. So that will be 5.2 times 25, which if we multiply that out, gives me 130. So my equilibrium point then will be P is 130 and Q is 25. All right, so now let's look at part B. Part B says, find the consumer surplus at the equilibrium price. So we have our formula for the consumer surplus up here. So what I'd like you to do is pause the video and set up that formula on your own, and then continue watching. And when you're ready, let's look at it together. So consumer surplus is, I'll write it down here, is going to be the integral from 0 to Q of the demand. So that's negative 0.8 Q plus 150 dQ minus P times Q. And now we're going to evaluate this at equilibrium point. So we're going to have P equal 130 and Q equal 25. So we can continue to plug that in. So we're actually looking at the integral from 0 to 25 of negative 0.8 Q plus 150 dQ minus P is 130 times Q is 25. And so notice that the equilibrium point we see in the P and Q here and in the limits of integration, but we leave the Q as a variable here, and that's because we're computing this integral. So that Q is going to vary in the integral, but it's going to be fixed in our constants here. All right, so far in this class, we've been working really hard to compute integrals using many different techniques. Now, so far in this class, after we've had that practice, now we're going to be able to use calculators to compute those integrals. And that's just because now we've had the practice, so we know how to do it, but to speed things up when we're finding these business applications is we just need to actually know what that integral is. So we're going to look at how to compute that integral using Desmos. So I'm going to pull out my Desmos calculator here, and I'm going to walk us through how we compute that integral. So I have the Desmos calculator on my iPad here, but you might be using this on a computer or a different device, and it operates in a similar way. So we navigate over to where we can type in letters. So I'm going to start typing in the integral, INT, and then it creates that integral for me. So for us, we're going to have our upper bound be 25. So I go back to my main functions to put in numbers, 25 to 0. Then I click down to get to the main section here. So now I have negative 0.8. And then I'm going to type in my variable. So I'm going to use Q. You could use a different variable here, but I'm just using Q in my problem, so I might as well just keep that consistent. So negative 0.8 Q plus 50. I'm going to do some parentheses here so my calculator knows where to start and stop. And I have dQ. So again, just finishing up, going back to my alphabet, dQ. And then we see that we have the integral there, 3,500. Now, some Desmos calculators don't have that complete feature, so just make sure that you do have the most updated Desmos calculator. All right, so we're not quite done with that consumer surplus, so we need to subtract now. Subtract P times Q, so 25, and I'm using just a lot of parentheses, so my calculator knows the order that I need to compute, times 130. All right, and in total, we get 250. So we go back to our notes and we can write this is all equal to $250. And notice that the units here is in dollars. And that's because when we're doing this computation, what we notice, but we have a price, so is in dollars times Q, quantity, is an amount. So that gives us a total dollar price, and similar in this case. So we have our total demand that we're adding up. So we kind of have here the total demand from consumers and the total that's coming in from the selling those Q items. So in total, we get that price that's coming, that is the surplus. Awesome. All right. So now let's move on to part C. Part C is similar, but now we're finding that producer surplus at equilibrium price. So I'd like you to pause the video to first set up that integral. When you're ready, let's look at it together. All right, so this is part C. So the consumer, or rather the producer surplus, will look like P times Q minus the integral from 0 to Q of the supply function. So for us, that looks like P is 130 times Q is 25 minus the integral from 0 to 25 of 5.2 Q dQ. All right, so check your work, make sure that it looks consistent here. Then what I'd like you to do is pause the video and either work out this integral on your own or use your calculator. When you're ready, let's look at it together. All right, so I'm going to open back up my Desmos calculator. I'm going to type in the integral, so start typing int. Lower bound is 0, upper bound is 25. And then we're looking at 5.2 Q dQ. And then from there, well, that's the integral. So first I have to put at the beginning is P times Q. So 130 times 25. And again, I'm just going to go back and use a lot of parentheses here. There we go. And I'm subtracting. So in total, we should be getting 1,625. So I'm going to record that here. So our total producer surplus is 1,625. So on the next page, we just have a couple more examples to look at. So I encourage you to pause the video and rewatch any of these 3 parts again, to make sure you're feeling comfortable with using these formulas that we were introduced to in this video. All right, thanks for watching, everyone.